Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 22nd episode of Shot of Nostalgia, rocking and rolling right through 1998. We're pulling off the highway, man. We're stopping, we're refueling. We're gonna be back next week with a whole new shit shebang caboodle. But this is it, man. We're here. It's December in 1998. We're in our final two Raws, our final newsletter. I'm good old Mike Belcaster in a puddle of nostalgia right now with the one and only.
Live from No Cell Studios, it's the ACEFIELD Tavern, ACEFIELD Retro, and as you so beautifully said, we say goodbye to 1998 tonight. But it's not a sad goodbye; it's a good goodbye because we've had a great time doing all of this through the Attitude Era. We're reliving a lot of moments that we grew up with as kids, and there's a lot to be said about remembering things through rose-colored glasses. But I think we've proven that 1998 was just as memorable as we last left it. It was a good time.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I mean, just going from the beginning till now, I mean, all the stuff we've witnessed again. So, I mean, this is every best of Attitude Era DVD compilation. We got every moment basically, and then some. Like there was some stuff on there that we totally forgot about, but fell in love with all over again. Choppy PP being one of them. But it's what a journey it's been. How awesome it's been. I can't tell you how thankful I am to be doing this show with you. How amazing these Shot of Nostalgia episodes are, because it really is a shot of nostalgia. I feel like a kid again when we're rewatching some of these, when we're talking about it, when we're deep diving through it, and not a better brother to be running down the road with, man.
I 100% agree with you. And the one thing I pulled away, we knew we were going to get all those moments from, all the Stone Cold Steve Austin moments, the DX moments, Vince McMahon coming into his own. But what I really pulled away was just how much they put emphasis on creating new stars, and how all these stars, you name them, The Rock, Triple H, even a guy like X-Pac, Stone Cold, they've all grew into their own and became these new emergent legendary characters. Mankind took that next step, and it's not just the Hell in a Cell fall. It's a whole bunch of character work throughout this year that we've seen him really come into his own. And it just shows, we're comparing this to WCW in the newsletter, and obviously we know it's going on in parallel at the same time, but comparing the two different ways of business where you're leaning on the past and nostalgia acts, and you're also watching the other side with WWF, building new stars. Guys are getting chances. Triple H is getting a chance to become the world champion shortly after this year is over. And The Rock, of course, where he started in January is not where he finished in 1998, man. It's awesome to see. I mean, just kind of, history repeats itself. So when you look at a wrestling company that bases itself on nostalgia, you have to build new stars and recoup and get a new plethora of guys to build around, because without that, you don't have anything. So that's what I pulled away from 1998.
Yeah, no, and work rate's not the most important thing in, in the world of pro wrestling. At least it wasn't back then. I mean, we had so much segment going on as opposed to in-ring action. I think I maybe could pick a handful of matches that were of our 2023 quality here, but my God, it was still so great. I mean, I was entertained. I enjoyed the shit out of every single Raw we watched. I mean, there was a few stinkers here and there, but nothing that really took away the whole vibe, man. I remember getting into this, me and you were both like, I don't know how I feel about this. But once we hit, maybe a month and a half in, the story started picking up more and more. The content's there, the love of pro, it just brought you back to why you were a fan of it again, man. And I loved every single minute of it.
This year, more than any year, was, if you look at the process of becoming a butterfly, I think in 97, there was a lot of good moments, but WWF was in their cocoon phase. And I think over time, as we watched in 1998, there was still some of the stuff they were shedding from the new generation of the childish type of act that they were doing. As they continue to adopt what became the Attitude Era, they came into their own. Following WrestleMania 14, it was a completely different product. And if you look from the first episode that we watched in January of 1998 until the ones we're going to be reviewing tonight, in a lot of ways, I don't think there's a year that the company ever changed this much. If you look at any year in WWF or WWE history, this is the year I feel like most has changed from end to end. And I think it speaks volumes about what they were able to accomplish. And I think this may be one of the most important years in company history to have them take that next step and to be where they are today, because I don't think they are the powerhouse if it wasn't for this year, the 12 months we just went through.
Yeah, 120%, man. I mean, they really flipped over a new leaf, shed their old skin, really brought in new life to the company. And it felt fresh. it felt on par with everything, and it was so good. I mean, from bringing in Mike Tyson to, the Hell in the Cell match with Foley getting thrown off the top to, I mean, Pete Rose getting tombstoned. I mean, there was so much good stuff, good quality stuff here, and I mean, I can't believe the year Mick Foley had. I know I don't want to toot the year in review so early, but I mean, we went from the Rumble where we had the three faces of Foley coming in, and it was an awesome moment. But then we had this transition of Foley becoming, the battered puppy dog that Vince McMahon so made him out to be after the Hell in the Cell, and then him going, I mean, to, like you said, what we're watching tonight. I mean, he's teaming up with DX by the end of the night. Just an emotional roller coaster following that, and that kudos to Foley. I mean, I was always a big Foley guy, but it just made me realize why I loved him again so much, and every minute of it was great television. Really, really just amazing, man.
So today we're going to be reviewing the two Raws, the last of the year, December 21st and December 28th, and that's it. No pay-per-views, no third Raw. We're going to be in and out tonight, but we have a newsletter review before that, so let's see what Dave Meltzer has to say in the final newsletter, December of 1998.
Happy Hour.
All right, Dusty, we've made it to the December 28th newsletter, and there's some stuff in here, but it's not as juicy as we've had weeks past, but it's the same old here. WCW and WWF are at each other's throats, and right now WCW is stressing out because they kind of see the writing on the wall, what's going on, and we know what's going on screen and on their end, but it's chaos behind the screen. But we have a little bit of the litigation going on, and that happened at the beginning of the year with a lot of those going on with character infringement and tossing names and degrading talent on air on the other side. No low was too low during the Monday Night Wars. But the latest in the legal stuff going on between WWF and WCW was a lawsuit filed earlier this month as regards the recently aired and generally highly acclaimed movie Hitman Hart Wrestling with Shadows. So I asked you this. This is available on YouTube. You can find it elsewhere. It was on DVD. We can cover this at length, but we'll talk a little bit about it here. Your initial thoughts on the Hitman Hart Wrestling with Shadows DVD that came out following the Montreal Screwjob, and have you watched it in full? And if you did, what did you think of it?
I watched it, I think, probably a couple months after it came out on whatever physical form it was, VHS, DVD. I don't remember at the time. I'm pretty sure it was VHS, but yeah, I thought it was even then I thought it felt like a slander piece against Bret Hart. And it was crazy. I don't think you can get away with, anybody, AEW doing a piece like that about Cody, or, WWE doing a piece like that about Punk. Like, it was just too much legality involved. It's insane that this released during all this conflict going on and all the, the Monday Night Wars. It's insane, man.
So WCW filed a suit asking for excess of $3 million in a Stamford, Connecticut court for restraint of trade against Titan Sports. In the lawsuit, World Championship Wrestling claims WWF went out of its way to stop High Road Productions, which is the production company behind the movie. They are located in Canada, from releasing its documentary, and in doing so, kept Turner Broadcasting and WCW from attempting to acquire the rights to the movie. So WCW wanted to get their hands on this footage, WWF on their side acting like, well, it happened in our locker room. A lot of the footage here takes place here. And this was not the intention of the movie. The Wrestling with Shadows thing that's supposed to happen was capturing wrestling footage from Bret Hart's career. This had been something that WWF signed a deal in the summer of 96 and the Hart family, and they would cover 1 year in the life of Bret Hart. And of course, they didn't know exactly what they would be covering, but there was a camera crew following them. But Meltzer continues, there was no time frame in the contract, but the understanding while making the movie is the wrestling footage in the movie would climax at SummerSlam when Hart captured the WWF title, which was the original plan, with Hart to win the title from Shawn Michaels months earlier at WrestleMania, but also continue the story if he was going to be staying with World Wrestling Federation. And Meltzer says, in return for a movie publicizing from behind the scenes, the WWF would supply High Road with all footage requested of its product, and in particular, Hart's career both in and out of the ring. And the contract also stipulated WWF would have all of its performers and companies sign privacy release forms so they could appear in the documentary form. And in return, WWF was to receive $30,000 plus a percentage of the eventual profits. Continues to talk about what the movie did, the entertainment value, and how it's kind of cutting edge because of the fact that it was exposing a little bit behind the scenes and exposing the business. And that was really not happening during this time 97, 98. But this is something now, because now Bret Hart is no longer in the WWF camp, and this movie came out after he was done. It's kind of a gray area, and we'll see exactly what happens with this. It doesn't have as much weight anymore because I feel like the Montreal Screwjob's been over, conversated at this point.
Yeah.
And hopefully we get to the point with the brawl out where it just becomes one of those things that we're done talking about it, but it still sells. And people still today watch this documentary and poke holes and say, this is insane to be watching as it happened in real time.
Yeah, no. And I think it led to, like the success of Beyond the Mat and stuff like that. I feel like without this, that wouldn't really have the legs it did. It still had that kind of expose type vibe to it, where they're showing off the harmful side of the business, whatever it may be. But yeah, I think it was revolutionary for the time. But yeah, it's crazy, man.
So we'll see exactly what happens with that in 1999. But we're going to continue here with Steve Austin's status of his injury, and he's been beat up at the end of this year, as are a lot of guys. His status at press time over his torn muscle in his side was questionable. And Meltzer says Austin needs to be at close to 100% as possible for the Rumble, since the storyline has him starting at number 1 and being there up until the end, which would be about 30 to 45 minutes, depending on the time limits are booked. And Meltzer says, so they have to give him time to heal properly. A decision was made midweek on whether he'll work the house shows in Chicago or MSG for sold out shows. If the card has to be changed, it'll probably be some sort of Corporation versus DX tag match. So they want to keep Stone Cold healthy here. He is the cash cow. We talk about it all year. He's the guy. That rock bottom match that we covered last week, go back and check it out. Probably his worst match ever, and not to his fault. Both Taker and himself were badly hurt. Taker with the broken foot, and Austin battling some level of intestinal infection he had going on, plus torn a muscle landing on that dirt pile during the Buried Alive. Match was a mess. And
Yeah.
mentioned the malfunction of the equipment happening at the side of the Buried Alive site. So that didn't help the match either. But moral of the story is they want to keep Steve Austin healthy at this point, because he's a guy they need going into the Rumble. And of course, the 99 Rumble, the whole thing is built around No Chance in Hell. It's the Stone Cold Steve Austin story that Vince McMahon's trying to make sure that Austin doesn't get a title shot. And of course, Vince wins the Rumble and they go on and the whole thing. But they need him here. And if he was to get hurt and not be able to compete, you got to wonder what that story would have been.
Yeah, no, I could only imagine what the hell would happen. I'm sure Vince still would have made it a way to become champion, but I couldn't imagine this end of 98, early 99, going into the 2000s without Stone Cold Steve Austin there. It's insane, man.
So we also have Shawn Michaels going to a back specialist in New York to get another prognosis of his future or lack thereof in the ring. This was an interesting part I pulled from this. There has apparently been talk that he would wrestle Triple H at WrestleMania, which would be WrestleMania 15 in Philadelphia. And Meltzer says there are no plans of him wrestling until doctors rule it's possible for him to come back and give a timetable. Very interesting. We do eventually see his return match being against Triple H, but it's many years later, 4 to be exact. It's in 2002, SummerSlam. A young ACEFIELD Retro in the building enjoying that match. That was the same event that The Rock dropped the title of Brock Lesnar as the 25-year-old Lesnar going over and becoming the undisputed champion. But Shawn Michaels here, I wonder what the WrestleMania 15 card would have looked like if Shawn Michaels was involved in the ring. And I wonder if that second half of his career would have been as memorable if it started in 1998. And what makes me say that is I think Shawn Michaels had a lot of maturing to do, and I'm not sure he had done that just yet. And whether it be religion or personal stuff, it feels like he's just not ready to be back. And I think the best thing that could have happened was him waiting until 2002 to come back, because that second run could arguably, the argument could be made that it was better than that first run altogether.
Yeah, no, 110%, man. Very well put. And I think that the time off was best for the HBK overall vibe. I mean, we got so many banger matches out of him once he returned, but I think he needed that time off to really fully rest, recover, get his head straight, all that stuff. Because I think if he would have went back at 15, he would have imploded at some point, because he was still right off the cusp of, all of the addiction, all the drama going on inside, WWF. And, I think it was only better for the long-term story.
Yeah, 100%. And it's interesting to think about how the landscape changes if he wrestles Triple H and the storylines that happened at WrestleMania 15. That, if you guys remember WrestleMania 15 in Philadelphia, it was a Vince Russo special where you had the double turn by Triple H and joining the corporation and all that stuff on their end. And very overbooked WrestleMania. And I personally remember 1999 and WrestleMania 15 as a very memorable, one of my most influential wrestling events that I've ever watched as a kid, because it was one of my first WrestleManias to consume with like the brain to follow the storylines.
Yeah.
But if you go back and watch it, I think Shawn Michaels on this card feels a lot different because he had to be at the top of the card. Triple H, of course, it would be a sub-main event, but Triple H wind up, I believe he wrestled Kane at that WrestleMania, which looks a lot different, but you wonder what could have been, because that changes WrestleMania 2000, WrestleMania 17, and if Shawn Michaels around for WrestleMania 18, what is that like there? And I don't know, that's sort of the butterfly effect we work with. If something just changes a little bit, it offsets the history of professional wrestling.
Yeah, and who knows what it would have done? It could have hindered Stone Cold's rise and overall success. It could have hindered The Rock. It could have taken away from more performers than it would have given to. So, like I said, I think it's best the way it played out, and I'm happy that we got the later year runs of Shawn Michaels, because I mean, you say any of those matches, him and Flair, him and Taker, they were so poetically well done that I think it would have hurt his career not to have those under his belt, man.
100%. And of course, we'll see Shawn return in 2002, but he'll still remain a face on the screen for a little bit. Right now, he is the commissioner. He's in the corporation, and he'll be involved in these Raws in a big way. But we also have Sable. She did her Playboy shoot this past week in Santa Monica, California. Meltzer says they spent all day on 12/18 shooting for a potential cover. And Meltzer says, from what we're told, it's not a guarantee she'll be on the cover, but it's close to it. And the issue will come out the first week of March in 99 and be dated in April and be used as a cross promotion for WrestleMania. She'll appear totally nude in some of the photos, and the profile will feature her as Rena Mero and not so much as Sable, and acknowledge her marriage to Mark. Playboy does more fixing of photos than Disney, according to Meltzer, did an animation in A Bug's Life. So I guess Bug's Life was in the news there, just coming out. Meltzer wanted to be trendy and mention the movie that's popular.
Hot throwback. I like it.
What all the cool kids are talking about. They're talking about Bug's Life and Flick and all. Great movie, by the way. I love what Pixar does. But your thoughts on the Sable Playboy stuff? Were you a young adult? Were you lucky enough to have anyone purchase it for you in your life?
Yeah, well, absolutely. But I mean, I used to there was days I would go to work with my dad, and I'm pretty sure on release day, that was their first stop before we hit his warehouse job. So, but very, very awesome. Listen, I as a little kid, ecstatic. But one thing I did not think we were going to come across here on Shadow Nostalgia was Playboy with Sable being compared to A Bug's Life, which is amazing. Such good nostalgia right there. But yeah, no, it was. I thought it was huge for WWF. I mean, you got one of the biggest magazines publishing things at the time out there. I mean, Playboy was not anything you bat an eye with. It was huge. And it just, for Sable to be on the cover of it, only good things for WWF. I can't tell you how many conventions I've been at where people are bringing that magazine to get signed and stuff like that. Like, it's still a hot ticketed item. I mean, Sable's not out there doing too many wrestling cons anymore, but I mean, the opportunities still pull up. I still see that fucking magazine everywhere.
Yeah, I could picture the cover in my head. And it's interesting that he said that she wasn't guaranteed to be on the cover, because the way it was advertised on our screens, and maybe they knew by the time they started mentioning it on the screen, was that she'd be the cover girl. And they had the big thing in the ring. I can picture that they made the big poster board with the magazine cover. And, she was twice. She was twice the cover girl. She had been on the cover with Tori Wilson years later. I believe it was 2003, if it was around that summer. But
yeah.
This was big for wrestling, as you mentioned. It was a big moment for them to be cross-promotional and be a part of the mainstream in a different way. And this was part of their appeal. This was just as much as the Attitude Era was the violence and all the shock factor. It was the nudity and, the women that caught your attention in a big way. And what catches a man's attention more at this time in 98 than Playboy, where she was 100%. On the cover of it. And Sable was, in a lot of ways, a huge star. And it didn't matter what she was doing in the ring. It mattered as far as people talking about her at the water cooler at work. And this is a big piece of thing. I remember this very vividly when it happened, and I'm sure a lot of people do as well.
Yeah, and thank God they didn't pair up with Steve Austin. That's our one good takeaway out of it.
So we also have Time Magazine doing Man of the Year, and they made an announcement on Raw a week ago talking about how they want Mick Foley to get votes. And Meltzer says Mick Foley got something like a zillion votes. At one point, the poll shut down, and a rumor started that they were going to eliminate Foley from the list. And he says wrestling fans then upped their reputation greatly to folks online, as they were leaving all kinds of bashing message in the folder devoted to Matthew Shepard, who was second behind Foley on the list. And at one point, Bret Hart fans got him up to number 3. So this is the kind of the beginning of IWC getting involved in just you ask the wrestling fans to rally together, and there's nothing more galvanizing for wrestling fans to rally behind one of their own. They wanted Foley to be recognized as Man of the Year. And whether they were going to fix the vote or not on their end, they were at least going to recognize that Foley was very popular among wrestling fans, and just shows you have 4 million people watching Raw on a nightly basis. If those people went out and vote, that's going to completely overwhelm the whole system, because if those people are putting in Mick Foley or, Bret Hart on WCW side or even WWF side, it's still going to be a lot of people voting for this. They didn't probably anticipate all these people would be participating in their election cycle.
No, 100%. I'm just trying to mentally imagine what Mick Foley's cover shot would have looked like for Man of the Year on Time Magazine. Ooh, it was a good stuff, but amazing, man.
So we also had the People magazine. As we mentioned last week, we had the Stone Cold Steve Austin article, also the Goldberg one. But Meltzer says the current issue of People magazine, the one with 25 most intriguing people on the cover, they featured Austin as a breakthrough star in all of entertainment in 1998. WWF, in plugging the magazine on Raw, tried to insinuate the magazine named Austin as one of the 25 most intriguing people of the year, which Meltzer says wasn't the case. Mark McGuire was the only athlete who made it. And the story was only 2 graphs, with McMahon quoted as saying, quote, "He's the biggest superstar in wrestling history." And Meltzer says, which is about 10 years premature, but I mean, pretty much on par. McMahon knew what he had with him. If you think about it, like that, Stone Cold is up there with any of the greats. You can make the argument that he's a Mount Rushmore type of wrestler. And the story claims he sells 1 million shirts a month, and about 20,000 per month is closer to reality, according to Meltzer, unless Austin is getting $60 million royalty checks that nobody knows about. Interesting enough that the Austin 316 shirt thing was in the news, and Kevin Nash also for the NWO show shirts, where apparently the royalty checks were being renegotiated and making sure that they get their share of these copyrighted things. And the Austin 316 shirt is still selling very well. Not a million a month, but 20,000 a month is still very good.
Yeah, and there's been, I just recently watched something that was rather an Instagram reel or whatever, but Austin was talking about numbers, and he said he made a good 6 figures on that shirt for a good amount of time. So listen, that's more than you could ask for. It might not be, $60 million, but I think Austin's sitting pretty plush right now because of those damn t-shirts.
Oh yeah. We also have New York Post, and wrestling's been covered pretty extensively in a negative way by Phil Mushnick, the 1218 New York Post column. He had said, Phil Mushnick being, "We laughed out loud this week while reading that 4 WWF wrestlers recently visited a Connecticut high school to deliver an anti-drug message to students." And Phil Mushnick continued, "Is there any athletic enterprise more synonymous with illegal drug use than pro wrestling?" And he continues, "If we found a syringe filled with steroids, we'd say, what the hell are you doing?" So he continues to disparage everything going on with WWF and takes every shot they can. But I guess it is kind of funny when the steroids was a badly kept secret on the WWF side for a very long time. They're trying to make the message that they cleaned it up. Wrestlers a little bit smaller in 1998. They're not the same type of wrestlers we were seeing throughout the golden era of Hogan, Macho Man, Warrior, etc. But yeah, this is just more of the same from New York Post and the media, where they're either ripping on wrestling for being fake, being too edgy, or also when they're trying to do something good, they still take a shot at them saying, well, that's hypocritical that they're even doing that. So you're never going to please those people that are not fans of wrestling in the first place.
100%, man.
So we continue with the Detroit news. So they're all over the media here. They ran a huge feature on wrestling on 1220, and the story focused on the raunchiness and recent angles on both shows, mainly Raw, ending with the line of McMahon is laughing about it all the way to the bank. He continued, "It said the recent TV guide with Hogan, Austin, Taker, and Goldberg on the cover had the highest newsstand sell-through percentage of any issue since Princess Diana's death."
Wow.
That's, huge. And we talked about the TV guide. We talked about it being a collector's item nowadays. You go on eBay probably, and I'm not sure exactly what they're going for, but it was a big deal. TV guide was your gateway into the month of TV. It was something that people accessed. It was on everybody's coffee table growing up, because whether you're going to the Blue Channel to check out what's on TV back in the day where it would scroll through, or you would use this to check it out and make sure you're aware of it. So this was a huge piece, and being on the cover is just as good as being on Sports Illustrated. It's a huge thing that people kind of take for granted because it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah, no, 100%. I was enthralled on getting those covers and getting those issues and having them as part of the Belcaster collection at the time. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And I mean, even laughing at the thought of getting a TV guide now, like what would that even look like? It'd be like a pamphlet and just say, like, hit your on-demand button, like
Exactly.
none of it matters. Or like check out your local streaming thing. But it's crazy. The fact that they outsold more issues since Princess Diana's death. I mean, that's a huge tell. That's amazing how boom period of wrestling this is. I mean, you're talking about a giant figure in the world, and their articles or their issues are outselling. It's insane, man.
I mean, really just shows you how transcendent wrestling was at this point. And not that, I know that we always look at the ratings and you can look at the people consuming Raw on a given night, which would be like 4.5 million people. On Nitro side, about the same, maybe a little bit less. On any given night, there's close to, on a good night, 10 million people watching professional wrestling. And I know that people will say, like, okay, SmackDown's doing about 2 million and Dynamite does about 800,000. Raw does a little over 1 million. But that's not taking into account how people consume their wrestling. I was doing an interview, and go back and check it out. Liam Jacobs visited the tavern last week. It will drop. I think it dropped an audio already this week, so check it out. But he was talking about he is a wrestling fan, lifelong fan. He does not watch live wrestling. He consumes it on social media and YouTube. And yeah. I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that are doing the same thing, and they're able to keep up with storylines. It's a different generation that's able to consume their wrestling, and that's not accounted for in the ratings. So people are doing it in a different way. And I'm not saying it's close to 10 million people watching wrestling, but it's probably much closer than we actually think.
No, 100%, man. And that's the thing. Like, there's no chart to tell you how everything's being consumed in one small way. It's not the Nielsen ratings. You're not getting a flat rate number come Thursday after, Monday Night Raw or whatever. It's insane to think that the ratings are the telltale signs here. It's ridiculous, man.
Well, if you're looking at those YouTube videos of the Bloodline, specifically those moments where you had the Usos turning on the Bloodline and leaving them, and that moment on SmackDown, or even Sami Zayn being kicked out of the Bloodline, all that stuff. If you look at the clicks and the reactions on whether it be TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, if you combine all those views in some way, there's eyes on it. And I think that at the end of the day, until they figure out a metric to measure accurately those eyes and account for them, I don't think we can really assess the popularity of wrestling, because you can make the argument that now there's more eyes on wrestling that there is here because of the accessibility and the availability for at any given time. Even if they're not consuming the current product, they may be watching on Peacock like we are a different year. So at the end of the day, there's a lot to be said about the exposure of WWE and their ability to, across these different platforms, be able to be watched and consumed.
Yeah, I guarantee at least 1 million people have seen Kenny Omega get dropped on his head over the weekend.
Dude, man, I was watching the Tiger 91, Tiger Driver 91 move.
Shit, yeah.
It had me down a Masawa hole, and then I was watching all the stuff and his unfortunate pass in 09 in the ring. Like, it had me watching all these Masawa matches, and like, I hope Kenny is okay and the wear and tear from that move. Like, because he's okay. It seemed like he's good, but like seeing a move like that, not to go off on a tangent, it was, man, that's scary. Like, there were a couple moments in that match where, obviously these guys are out there and they're professionals and know what they're doing, but that move, there's no way to fake that, dude. He landed right in the back of his head.
No, it was brutal, but that's what I mean, though. I'm sure there was a shitload of eyes on that are undocumented.
Right.
It's sure you can see the quote tweets, the retweets, views on YouTube, whatever. But that's the new Nielsen rating. Nobody's watching 3 hours worth of wrestling and sitting there every minute, documenting every minute of it. It's all consumed on, whatever our reels are things. Because even I watch Dynamite, I still miss parts of it. I watch Raw, I miss parts of it. You see shit you missed out on, and you're like, oh wow, that happened. Like, where did I miss that? But you catch it online. Those are still, those are more warranted views than the TV ones are at this point.
Yeah, and I think if people are able to accurately depict what is and how things are being consumed and get an accurate number, maybe that's coming down the line. And I think we're still years away from that, because we're still seeing the archaic way of measuring with Nielsen ratings being utilized. We see Meltzer and Alvarez drop the Dynamite ratings on a weekly basis on, I think it's Thursday or Friday, to say how many people watched. And that's right now gospel for everybody. They're like, oh, they only did that number. But that number is skewed no matter what, bigger or smaller. It's skewed because that's only one section of the population of how they consume it. And not everybody has a cord connected to a TV box anymore. It's just not the case.
Yeah, 100%, man.
So finally, here in the newsletter, according to relevant knowledge media metrics, WWF.com is the #1 site on the web for males 12 to 17.
Woo!
So first of all, WWF.com was one of my go-to sites back in the day because it was, you go there. I would go on there and find pictures of my favorite wrestlers and I print them out. The thing is, though, and we've had this conversation all throughout 1998, and we're right in that wheelhouse, 12 to 17. During that time, it's interesting to see that this adult-oriented product is attracting younger, skewed fans and we wonder why. I mean, we can make the assumption because we were young boys at this time watching the product and our parents kind of looked past it, but it is very interesting. And this was a good way to measure it. And WWF.com was a good way for people to consume the product. And this was well before its time. Websites existed, but not to the level how WWF was using it. We've seen them use the hotline. They were hyping up the website a lot, and we'll see it throughout the rest of this year and also throughout 1999, where the website becomes pivotal to their growth. And that's how they recognize, and they're a trailblazer in a lot of ways, and they're at the top of the system as far as understanding where things are going. But this is another example of it. They put a lot of emphasis into their website because they saw that's where the trend was going.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there wasn't much out there on the internet at the time either. It was very bland, Wild Wild West style, but having that place to go to. I mean, we talked about how much we praise South Park wrestlers and stuff like that, but it was all in the same flow. You would go check out WWF.com, then you'd be like, oh, I want to see what Blue Meanie looks like as a South Park guy. That was basically what we had. That was it. It was the best.
South Park wrestlers. They should bring those back, man.
They should.
I'm sure they got to be somewhere. I'm sure someone has an Instagram page for it. So follow me at ACEFIELD Retro if you guys make South Park wrestlers. I am a big fan of them. But with that being said, let's get our fix. Talk about WWF Raw from December 21st, 1998, from the Spokane, Washington area, from the Spokane Arena. Let's get our fix.
Get your fix.
Love it, man. Miss Ho.
All right, time to get our fix here. Our current champs here in 1998 to end the year, December 21st. Our champion of the WWF is The Rock. He won it back at Survivor Series. Our IC champions, Ken Shamrock. He won it back on 10/12/98. Our tag team champions are Bossman and Shamrock, 12/14/98. The European champions, X-Pac. He won it back on the 18th of October. The light heavyweight champions, Dwayne Gill. He won it back on the 23rd of November. The hardcore champions, the Big Boss Man, 11/30/1998. And the women's champion is the Playboy cover girl herself, Sable. She won it back on 11/15. So if you look at the championships here, Mike Belcaster, The Rock's the champion, Shamrock, Bossman, and Shamrock are the tag champs. Bossman's the hardcore champion. 4 of these 6 championships reside in the camp of the corporation. So they're dominating right here. And quietly, they've acquired all the championships, and you don't really realize it until you see them come out to the ring carrying all the gold.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, from where we started this journey all the way back in January to now in December, I mean, the title spectrum looks completely different. It was DX holding all the belts, and now we've turned to where the corporation's in line with everything. It's insane, man.
So we start the show with a cold open here. Vince McMahon talking to Gerald Briscoe, Pat Patterson, and Gerald Briscoe is told he's going for a quick workout to train for the Rumble. Vince leaves his son Shane in charge of tonight's Raw, and Vince quickly reminds Pat Patterson and Briscoe that you guys are responsible for Shane's actions, so keep him in check. And when Vince returns, he said, I'll bring back a bonus for the corporation to enjoy. Shane heads straight for the building, and he does that swagger, trying to be his daddy right there, walking with a purpose. And Patterson and Briscoe are trying to keep up and try to keep an eye on him. So while daddy's away, Shane McMahon, the son, will play here, and we're off to a great start. Love the cold open to set the tone for the night. No Vince McMahon, so there's going to be chaos. Yeah,
no, absolutely. Really, really good stuff. And it's good to see Shane getting his paws wet a little bit in the promoter area. So I'm digging it. He's got good swagger about him. I'm excited to see what Shane's doing, man.
So we open up Raw. Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler at the announce desk. And of course, Jim Ross is still recovering from his Bell's palsy bout. We won't see him in these 2 Raws, but Michael Cole getting his chance to shine here, and he will never really let it go. Of course, Jim Ross will come back in, short bursts, but Michael Cole will always have a place and still has a place. And he is, he had a lot of growing to do for sure. But I think, as we mentioned too, a while ago talking about Michael Cole, where a lot of people hate on him and his announced style, but I think there's an appreciation for Michael Cole that's growing over time. And I think Pat McAfee was pivotal in getting that out of him. So it is interesting to see how much he's changed over time from the person we're seeing on our screen in 1998.
Yeah, 100%. He went from pipsqueak to the lead broadcaster, man. I mean, the guy has done it all, and you gotta respect him, and goddamn, I admire him for it.
So we open up the show with Shane McMahon leading out the corporation. They go right to the ring, and Commissioner Shawn Michaels, he's wearing a Santa hat because we're right in the Christmas season. This is the last Raw before Christmas. Shane gets on the mic. He says he's going to run Raw tonight, and he says it's going to be my way, not my dad's way. This is the way I'm going to do it. And of course, he's still a heel, but there's still a glimmer of hope that maybe he'll be different. I think the fans kind of they're holding out hope for that. And before he gets any more, we get DX appearing on the stage. And they say, if Shane thinks you got the keys to the kingdom, DX has the keys to the boiler room, which brings out Mankind. Shane's yelling at everyone to turn off Mankind's theme music and calls DX and Mankind, quote, a loser convention. And the bad news bears is the WWF, which I think both Mankind and DX kind of look at as like, so what? We will take that as an honor.
Yeah.
Triple H grabs the mic and says the bad news is that Shane has an even bigger asshole than his old man. And Shane keeps his head cool there, but the crowd chanting asshole in his direction. And then Shane turns his attention towards the Outlaws and reminds them, hey, you guys lost to Bossman and Shamrock for the tag titles. Shamrock and Bossman point to the titles there. And Shane says, you know what? For everything going on, you guys won't get a rematch. And then Shawn Michaels announces singles matches for all 4 guys. Billy Gunn will take on Ken Shamrock while Road Dogg takes on Bossman. Patterson and Briscoe look at each other and they don't seem to like what's going on there. And Shane says, as for Triple H and X-Pac, you guys will take on The Rock and the corporate insurance policy Test. So Shane, this will be Test's in-ring debut. And Shane grabs the mic and challenges Mankind for a match later tonight in this very ring. And he said, I want to finish what my dad started, and I'm going to kick your ass, Mankind. So we are about to have some, I mean, they set the stage for the whole Raw here, which was cool. We never get these opening segments, and it becomes an overdone trope throughout WWE and WWF, but
yeah,
it worked really well here. I really much enjoyed this, but what did you think about this?
I was loving the fresh new blood being out there. Shane, I thought Shane was trying to make it a point to like, oh, I can make Raw different. Just trust me, guys. Let me do it. And as you said, it was cool for him to lay everything out. I love the back and forth between Triple H and Shane. Triple H calling out, Vince and all this stuff. It was great. But listen, ballsy move for Shane to be like, I'm going after Mankind, man. I'm going to finish what my dad started. And like, yeah, I love the change of landscape here. It's not just a chaotic opening, that they kind of gave you a little roadmap of what's going to happen tonight on Monday Night Raw, and it worked out really well.
And little did we know we would have Shane McMahon active at WrestleMania just a few months later as the European champion. He wins the European Championship. I know he's wrestling X-Pac for the championship. I can't remember if he goes in with the title or wins the title there, but it's a big piece of Shane was looked at as this non-active wrestler, but seeing him wrestle Mick Foley or even thinking about it doesn't seem weird because we've seen him wrestle Taker at WrestleMania. We've seen him in all different matches. He jumped off the Titantron against Steve Blackman.
Yeah.
The very same Test that's in the ring with him. They've had battles. So yeah. Shane McMahon, I mean, some memorable moments, and people have their opinions on Shane, and there's a certain great spot of wrestling history that Shane McMahon was a part of.
No, 100%, man. And I'm happy for it. I've always loved Shane. I think his energy here in 98 is great. Going into his, huge wrestling career afterwards, he becomes a multi-time champion of sorts, and he's kicking it, man. I've always loved Baby Shane, though. This little package in 1998 here leading the 99, it's the best. So I'm all here for it.
Yeah, we're about to get that Jack specific figure with him wearing that blue pinstripe suit, holding the microphone too. I don't know if you were a proud owner of that figure, but I wanted so badly an active. We got it eventually, but when I got it first, he became sort of active in the ring, and then you couldn't really wrestle because he's holding the microphone. But you did your best as a kid to make it happen.
Yeah, no, you needed it. It was still a part of it, and it was awesome.
So we also had the announcers talking about that People's Magazine 25 most intriguing people, and Stone Cold Steve Austin gets mentioned in the same class as Hillary Clinton, Oprah Winfrey, Mark McGuire, and Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler make it clear nobody's made a bigger impact in 1998. And we heard in the newsletter that's not exactly the skew of the article, but wrestling fans are going to believe what they put on the screen. And the fact that he's included on this cover is a very big deal.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I bought that magazine too, just because Austin was mentioned in it. Like it worked, obviously.
So we get a segment here with D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry. They're just showing them, back with other women. They're really just trying to hype up this sexual chocolate gimmick. D'Lo getting frustrated with him and talking about we need to get our focus in the ring. And this becomes sort of their dynamic here where D'Lo's all business and Mark's all play. Mark Henry's character over the last, I think it's been like 4 weeks, has really come into, he's fully sexual chocolate. And this will be kind of what he's known for until the end of the Attitude Era. This is a big piece. He's on the road to impregnating Mae Young, and she gives birth to a hand. We're on our way.
not all of the crazy shit ends here in 1998. That's for sure. but
so we have our
I loved it.
First match here. Gangrel taking on Al Snow. Lead the way. Talk about this match. It was a short one, but it was our opening contest of the evening.
Well, as I was going to mention, as you so lovingly put it in our notes, but Teddy Long making his referee. Is this the official debut of Teddy Long as a ref? Crazy shit. First thing I noticed was like, oh shit, there's Teddy Long, man. He's rocking the stripes. Absolutely loved it. It was an okay match. Nothing too crazy. I wasn't expecting El Snow to pick up the victory here. Regardless of anything, it was intense. I mean, it was a good finish. You got the snowplow in. I was shocked, man. I was like, holy shit, they're doing this. But the best part of the whole match is the lights go out. You hear that Brood music. It is pitch black in the shit. I don't know if you've been to a show where the lights go out, a taker's coming out, whatever. You still kind of see like a little bit of the arena. This is pitch black. I don't know if the camera guy like zoomed into the floor or whatever, but the lights come up and it's a bloodbath on El Snow. And did El Snow sell the shit out of it. My takeaway is El Snow is very underrated off of this. He was all over the like, not again. He's walking back and forth. He's in distress. He's freaking out. And I loved it, man. I really did. I thought it was an okay match, but with a great ending segment. Very cool.
The bloodbath was always a great visual, and especially when a guy was selling it really well. And it's so. Yeah, I mean, it really does a good job of selling it, and it feels brutal, and especially with the red light on, and when the red light comes off of them, then they actually show what the damage was done. Yeah, there's something very haunting about the Brood, and all three guys, very memorable characters, and it's no coincidence that Christian and Edge go on to be Hall of Famers and world champions, and Gangrel had a very memorable career in his own right, and he's given back to the wrestling business. So the Brood, I mean, between theme music, presentation, great legacy they've carved in a short period of time where they really weren't a tandem for that long, if you think about the scope of things, but they really made an impact. And this is one of the reasons that Bloodbath is absolutely intense.
Yeah, no, I listen. I loved it. Loved the Brood. I thought this was a great opening match. Like it was fun. It had some good spots, and it ended in a bloodbath, man. What more can you ask for?
So we go in here with a WWF Intercontinental Championship match. And it's interesting because Shane's making these matches, and Billy Gunn and Ken Shamrock are taking on each other with the title on the line. And here we are the crowd is hot for this. You got to remember, Billy Gunn is very, very popular in his time, and Shamrock is a polarizing character. People wanted to cheer for him, but the fact that he joined the corporation really left a lot of people angry at him, but he's still eliciting a lot of reactions. Huge Shamrock sucks chants, and they're getting a lot of suck it chants in response to Billy Gunn. Really good match. I mean, the crowd really gets behind Billy Gunn and really hates Shamrock. There's a lot of heat here. You have Shamrock going after the leg and trying to make sure he injures the larger Billy Gunn, who evidently, I mean, he moves around really well, but selling that bum leg, and then the fact that he's going for the ankle lock, the whole match is fantastic. And Shamrock kicks him, tries a victory roll. Owen does that sit down, same thing as Owen Hart from WrestleMania 10, sits down in it. And 8 minutes and 23 seconds, we've got a new Intercontinental Champion. But wait a minute, Shawn Michaels comes out, and turns out Shawn Michaels never said this match would be for the IC Championship. Gives the championship back to Ken Shamrock, and Billy Gunn does get the win. And Michael Cole calls Shawn Michaels a Grinch, and everybody's upset. But cool, like false finish here, because you're assuming the title's on the line. If you go back and watch it, which I did, they never announced for the championship belt. They never did. You're just assuming it is. The ref never holds it up. It's just you assume it's for the championship belt, but it's not. Billy Gunn gets the win. A very big win here. and it won't be long until he is IC champion. But I think they were testing the waters of seeing people would buy it. And clearly the crowd in Washington bought it this night.
Yeah, no, he was over as shit, and it was a good. It wasn't a complete suck the air out of the room moment when HBK came out and was like, nope, it was never for the title. So I think it, as you said, they were testing the waters. But Billy Gunn looks just as good as he did then as he does now, and vice versa. I mean, guy's a staple in our fandom of pro wrestling. This was an awesome match.
Absolutely. And we go to the ring, we get Hawk, and I mean, this is one of the down periods of the Raw shows the last couple of weeks, and Hawk is in his street clothes. He doesn't have his face paint on, and he wants to tell everyone about Droz. And Hawk says, I'm clean now, and I don't have to cover for Droz anymore. He refers to Droz as the pusher and an enabler, accusing him of throwing him off the top of the Titantron. Out comes Droz. Hawk then says Droz had a plan to keep Hawk drugged up so he could steal his spot in the LOD. And he says, when I heal up, I promise to discipline the hell out of Droz. Hawk lays the mic down, and then Droz jumps from behind. Here comes Animal. He's trying to save him, and then Droz leaves Animal and Hawk behind, saying he doesn't need them. And goddamn, awful stuff. And I mean, even if it wasn't in bad taste, it just has no interest. It's just bad acting, not good. And this is not the LOD I want to remember, because they're such a legendary tag team that this is such a, I wouldn't say it stains their career, but it's certainly not. You know, if you're trying to show someone the impact of the Road Warriors or LOD, this is just, it's awful. It's not good at all.
No, absolutely. This is just the shits. It was like, I'm good on it. No emotional, no horse in that race. Damn it.
So we have a check-in with Mark Henry and D'Lo Brown, and Mark Henry is still sort of being, a ladies' man. D'Lo Brown trying to get him focused. And Mark joins ladies while D'Lo stands guard and all that stuff going on. So, and they take us back to last Christmas with a Stone Cold hitting Stone Cold with the stunner. So that was from Christmas 97. Awesome to see. And good stuff. But we lead into our next match here. The Blue Blazer taking on Steve Blackman. But the Blue Blazer that usually we know as Owen Hart has Owen Hart in his corner. So interestingly enough, Owen Hart joins Michael Cole, Jerry Lawler at the table to explain the footage from last week when Steve Blackman unmasked him to show that it was Owen. And Owen said, that was edited. It wasn't me. And Cole reminds Owen that last week's Raw was live TV. And Owen still cries there's a conspiracy, gets up from the table, drops his headset. And then we get, some back and forth action here just for a quick period of time. 2 minutes is the finish of the match. Owen trips Blackman at the ringside for a DQ finish. And then we get Blazer putting Blackman in the Dragon Sleeper. Here comes Goldust to help out. He beats up Owen while the Blue Blazer tries to sneak away. Goldust grabs him at the ramp, holds him up, and Blackman can unmask him. He wants being Double J. Owen throws the cape on top of him and says, tries to cover Jarrett's face. Everybody saw it. And that's it. So what are your thoughts on this whole segment here? Just as shitty as we remember it?
Yes and no. I kind of give this more. This was done better than most of the Blue Blazer segments we've seen, and I thought it was fun having Owen be that is edited. Like no, them reach. No, it's live. Like there was a lot of good back and forth there. The match could have been anybody. Didn't really matter. But I thought the Jeff Jarrett swerve was pretty decent, and it kind of gave a little bit to the story. But yeah, just the who's of who's. I mean, Goldust, Blackman, Jeff Jarrett, Owen Hart. It's weird mashup of pro wrestlers.
What I did notice too, and of course you can go back and watch it knowing it's Jeff Jarrett, but I feel like, and I give Jarrett a lot of credit here, he altered his style of working a lot here, that, hitting an enziguri and wrestling a completely different style where you can look back and figure out it's him, but not because of the wrestling style. He went out of his way to make sure he just wasn't Jeff Jarrett wrestling with a mask on. He made sure to wrestle kind of like Owen Hart, which was interesting to see and kind of shows the skill set that doesn't let a lot of people see.
Yeah, 100%. Like I said, I think this was one of the better of the Blue Blazer segments we've seen. And good kudos to Jeff Jarrett, because he did really out-characterize himself to not be Double J under the mask. It was a different person. It worked out good.
They show us more Mark Henry and D'Lo stuff, which doesn't really need to be covered. Now we got Terry and Jacqueline involved in this as well. Mark Henry's trying to hook up with them or whatever, and they take us back earlier tonight where Vince left Shane in charge and holding Patterson and Briscoe responsible. As we enter the war zone, they entered it in with some new pyro, and we get a hardcore championship match. Road Dogg taking on Big Boss Man, trying to get rid of the hardcore championship from the corporation. And remember, Shane's in charge here, so if things go awry, this is all Shane's fault, or according to Vince, it's Patterson and Briscoe's fault. But lead us through this, Mike Belcaster. Tell us about this match, Road Dogg and Big Boss Man for the hardcore championship.
I'm not even trying to spoil that much, but this was one of the highlights of the last 2 episodes. I absolutely loved this all around, all throughout the arena brawl between the two. Boss Man and Road Dogg had such good chemistry. There was some super, super stiff shots going back and forth. We had a noose at some point around Road Dogg's neck. It was wild, but this was, if I was going to show somebody what the hardcore stuff was, this would definitely be in one of like the top 5 matches to show somebody. This was an all-out fun ass brawl. It had good length. It was, almost 7 minutes. Road Dogg, the new hardcore champion of the world. So damn good. I would give this, this was a highlight of any of the Raws we watched. This was a fucking blast.
I love these types of matches. And if I think back of the hardcore championship, I think of Crash Holly 24/7 rule. I also think of St. Valentine's Day Massacre, which is, I believe, Bossman and Bob Holly and Al Snow in the Mississippi River. And then also you think of the Road Dogg's run here. And I think having Road Dogg get his little bit of shine here as a hardcore champion, and he'll hold this championship, I believe, until WrestleMania. And also on the other end, Billy Gunn on the IC championship side, where he'll be the IC champion going to WrestleMania 15. It just shows the versatility of these characters. And I love this match as well. There's a lot of really awesome stuff getting involved here. And it sort of shows the spirit of the hardcore championship, where the direction was going, that no other promotion, WCW does introduce a hardcore championship at some point. They never quite captured the spirit of the hardcore championship in these 3 years. I think from 98 to 2000, you can make the argument in 2001, but I think at that point it kind of jumped the shark. But for the 3-year period, as you mentioned, the hardcore championship is very much one of the highlights of every show. And this match was no exception. There are a lot of chaos, as you mentioned before, cookie sheets and technicians tables being involved here. As you mentioned, the news. Sheets.
Jesus, yeah.
The cookie sheet was something. I mean, they came with the Jack Pacific figure, and for good reason. They were using cookie sheets,
left
all
and right,
over the place. We don't see enough cookie sheets in wrestling nowadays, but they were using 100%. Them all over the place. But we get Mankind getting involved, and he's the one that cost Bossman for the championship, tossing a net over Bossman. He hits Bossman in the face. It looked like a telescope. And Road Dogg covers him for the 3 count. Fun brawl all over the arena, just absolute chaos, but fans reacted, meaningful characters, new champion, and awesome stuff. I can't say enough good things about this. It was a lot of fun.
No, this felt like this is how you incorporate ECW into the future of pro wrestling. You make it fun like this, and I think WWF did a great job at the time. Road Dogg over his shit. The crowd loved it. I loved it. It was just a super fun match, man.
Man, I can't say enough good things. Great stuff. So go back and check that match out. And we don't say that often throughout 1998 Raw, where you have to go check these matches out. Yeah. This was interesting because it's one of the highlights of every Raw, not just this one. But we go back with Mark Henry. He's with Terry and Jacqueline. They're in now nightgowns, and Terry and Jacqueline start taking off Mark Henry's clothes. And the ladies put a dog collar around Mark's neck. And Terry said I'm a different kind of lover if you've seen those pictures. They decide to give him a massage, and luckily for Mark, there's a massage table in the room. Terry then puts, and I kid you not, guys, here, a ball gag in his mouth. D'Lo Brown's outside the door doing push-ups, and Terry sprays whipped cream all over Mark's chest. And you see Jerry Lawler here. He's losing his mind at ringside, saying Mark Henry's the luckiest guy in the world. Man, again, these segments too, this is the time too when you're watching as a kid at 12 years old, 13 years old, where your parents would walk in inevitably.
Yeah.
This was always the time they walk in where, oh, you're watching Monday Night Raw? It's almost time for bed. It's a school night. Wait a minute. What are you watching? It's always this segment. And they included 4 of them in the show. So it was they were asking to be, make every child that's watching the show have an awkward interaction with their parental units.
No, absolutely. As I was watching these, to recap, my daughter comes walking and she goes, I thought you were watching wrestling. She's like, this looks inappropriate. I was like, Fucking pause, fast forward. Oh shit, he's getting wax poured on his chest. Pause. Fast
Oh my
forward,
God.
It was so bad, but it was typical Mark Henry shit. It was great.
So we get a Jeff Jarrett promo here, and not much here, but and this is interesting because Jeff Jarrett's cutting a promo, but it seems separate than the Blue Blazer stuff he's doing. So it's like he's running a whole different program, a serious black and white type of thing, filmed behind the Spokane Arena, and Deborah's behind her man here. And yeah, just wanted to mention it as well. It was a decent promo and one of those things where kind of didn't really fit on the show, especially we just saw Jeff Jarrett dressed as the Blue Blazer. Now we're getting another promo here.
Yeah, very weird, very out of place, but not bad.
So we also get Patterson and Briscoe in the back talking to Shane, and they say, "Dude, you can't wrestle Mankind tonight." And then Shane is pumped up. I'm not going to be denied. I'm in charge since Pops is gone. And Briscoe said, "I'm nervous, man." And like the main thing he whispers to Patterson is like their Christmas bonus is going to be affected. Not that Shane's going to get hurt by that. Of course, maybe that plays into it, but seems like the Christmas bonus that Vince had promised the Stooges is what's playing into this, and they're panicking, man. And I think Patterson and Briscoe are such underrated characters throughout wrestling because they're the best type of Stooges, man. They're the best. 100%. They're the best.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more, man. I love me some Patterson and Briscoe all day long. But this is cheeky, fun, back and forth shit with Shane, and it's so good, so good.
So we go back to Terry Runnels and Mark Henry. She puts a mask over Henry's eyes, then she puts clamps on his arms and legs. And then they go back to the ring. And we haven't seen the last of this so far tonight. And unfortunately, again, if you are watching at home with anybody that makes, doesn't understand wrestling, they walk in and see that, we apologize on their behalf. So we go to our next match here. The Acolytes, Bradshaw and Farouk taking on the Job Squad. It's Bob Holly and Scorpio. Lead us through this match here. We have no Jackal at ringside. I asked myself, where's Don Callis? They just dropped him like a bad habit. So I'm not sure exactly where he is. I got to find the whereabouts of Jackal.
He was making sure Takeshita was being born. He's starting the grooming process.
The timeline kind of works out. I think Takeshita, if we look it up, he probably was born 98, 99, something like that.
But by the power of Don Callis, damn it, he had to go take it off. And he gave Takeshita the gem. So everything's all whole in the world. But this was all over the place. This is just like, could have been a very skippable match, but listen, we get to see a clothesline from hell. I mean, that's all you really want, but it was a DQ. It was weird. It didn't make any sense. A lot longer than I was expecting. It was 4 minutes almost, but it was just like, blah. Like it did not need to be on the fucking card whatsoever.
Yeah, why did we get a DQ here? Is because one of the Bradshaw wasn't the legal man? Is that what we're to assume, that Jimmy Cordero's car off the bell? He couldn't get them under control because the double team's going on? That's the way I took it.
But yeah, we'll go with it. But like it was a weird DQ call. It could have been a better match. Again, hell of a clothesline from hell. I'll take it all day long. Yeah, there was not really any legs here.
So we lead to our next match here, and it is the aforementioned Shane McMahon and Mankind match. And Shane, of course, has Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson in his corner. And Patterson and Briscoe are still trying to talk him out of it. Shane, don't do this, man. This is not for you. Shane doesn't care. And this shows the toughness, the origin of the toughness that the WWF, WWE audience has gone to know in canon kayfabe of how tough Shane McMahon is. Kind of starts here. And of course, we see the Shane McMahon punches here, the stinging jabs where he's popping around the ring. And we got to take note here of how tough Mankind is, but he is selling Shane's punches a little bit here. But Mankind takes him down with a clothesline, hits a double arm DDT with great sell job by Shane for not a classically trained wrestler. But here comes the corporation. Of course, no Vince at ringside, but the rest of them are watching. Mankind grabs a chair and a mic, and he says, "I have a Christmas surprise for you, Shane." Mankind reaches back to whack him. Shane falls on his butt. And Mankind decides not to hit him and instead gives Shane the opportunity to hit him with the chair. So Mankind no-sells the chair shot to his back. Shane tries to leave the ring. Mankind grabs him, starts punching him in the head. Patterson tries to help out with a running knee. Mankind then gets out of the way. Patterson nails Shane himself. And here comes Briscoe. He gets more of the same from Mankind. And he throws Briscoe and Patterson into Shane. And then Pat Patterson tries to attack. And then Mankind grabs what we now know affectionately as a testicular claw. Pat Patterson goes down. Mankind hits the running knee in Shane's face in the corner. He pulls out Sacco out of his sweaty tights, throws it right into Shane's mouth, and here comes The Rock to save Shane, and the ref finally throws it out. DQ, DX runs in to even the sides. Classic Attitude Era stuff here in front of us, but it has you looking at the match before where you get Jimmy Corderas throwing a DQ our way because they're not tagging in and out. And this match took, and I guess you can make the argument, Shane, the boss's son, whatever, all that stuff, but fun stuff. Shane McMahon's showing a little bit of toughness, but this is a guy that will go on to do a lot of memorable things. At the time, he was a non-active wrestler, and this is supposed to have shock value, but looking back and watching it now, it's Shane McMahon, pretty much the competitor. I know that people don't look at him for work rate, but Shane, like I said, I will support Shane McMahon and people that have fandom of him because I am one of them, and I think he did a lot of good things in wrestling. Not the good definitely outweighs the bad as far as Shane's whole career.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, look at the selling he did there in this fucking match. It was great. I mean, that's one thing. I mean, even with him getting dragged down the thing, like he looks like he got his ass kicked. He's got, little birdies are floating around his head. They're tweeting. He doesn't know what's going on, but he could sell the shit out of anything. And that was the best part about Shane's career, man. I think he added a lot to this.
So we go back to D'Lo Brown and Mark Henry here. D'Lo's trying to get Henry to join him for the tag match, but he's tied up, literally and figuratively. So their theme music is playing, and Mark Henry screaming, I'm coming, D'Lo." So,
yeah,
it's Attitude Era stuff, and it doesn't age well, but they've dedicated so much of this goddamn show to the segment, which, if you really look at the scope of things, doesn't matter. Like, this doesn't matter.
No.
And maybe at the time people were interested in it, but it really doesn't matter to any story. And this isn't a Stone Cold thing. These are two mid-carders that are not even champions.
Yeah, it's wild. The whole thing is wild.
So we go into D'Lo Brown's match here. And of course, Mark Henry is otherwise occupied, taking on the Headbangers. It's a 2-on-1 handicap match, 2 minutes and 45 seconds. D'Lo's music plays a second time. D'Lo Brown comes out. He's all pissed off. And you know what happens here. The Headbangers get the win after the double flak jab. Headbangers retain. They're holding toy tag team titles as well. They're not actually tag team champions, but they're holding on to titles. And Mark Henry escaped just as the match was over. He appears at the top of the ramp, still with cuffs on his hand, leftover whipped cream on him. D'Lo Brown's yelling at him and walking off. So there's your dynamic here. That's just the payoff here. The 2-on-1 handicap match that went 2 minutes and 45 seconds, dedicating fucking 6 segments to it. But I digress.
Yeah, I mean, I think the actual payoff is later, is the next episode of Raw, but this was so goofy. I give Mark Henry fucking all the credit in the world, though, for sticking through with this. I mean, coming out with the whipped cream, the fucking handcuffs, a lot of this. Like, this is basically like any fucking 90s movie, It was just weird, and I completely out of place. But go, Mark, man, sexual chocolate all the way.
So we have another magazine that's featuring another WWF talent. It's The Undertaker. He's on the cover of the February 1999 issue of Tattoo Magazine. So again, we have TV Guide, we got People's Magazine, we got newspaper articles, and now we have Taker on Tattoo Magazine. If you go to your local newsstand on any given moment, whether you live in the city, if you go to one of those actual newspaper stands, or you go to like a pharmacy in the aisle, you pop into the magazine aisle, wrestling is on multiple things, and it's not just WWF Magazine. It's things that you're capturing the eyes of people that don't really watch wrestling, and that's a good thing for the WWF, and that goes a long way in getting other eyes on the product.
100%, and a first glimpse of what the American Badass Undertaker eventually comes out to be. Because that's the first I seen that, I was like, God damn, he's missing Limp Bizkit, and this will all be a whole new gimmick.
So we have our main event here, and of course, it's the same one that was made in the opening segment. It's DX, which is the team of Triple H and X-Pac. They have Billy Gunn, China, and the Road Dogg in their corner, taking on the Corporation, which it's Test and The Rock, with Ken Shamrock, Shawn Michaels, and Big Boss Man in their corner. Mike Belcaster lead us through this match. It goes just shy of 10 minutes, but a lot of star power, of course, at ringside and in the ring. But even as far as main event goes, this was a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, this was great. I love the teaming aspect of Triple H and X-Pac, which I totally forgot about coming into this whole season of Shout Nostalgia. But they've been great. Love the going back and forth with Test and The Rock. Test looks like $1 million here, like really, really well done. I think Triple H and X-Pac do a great job of putting him over. I mean, he looks fantastic here, and I forgot how how impactful Test felt when he got there, because you're like, at first you're like, oh, he's some fucking roadie, blah blah. But I mean, he comes out here, he's rock and rolling, man. He's got those mean ass forearms. I miss Test, man. A totally underrated fucking person, and I wish he would have gotten more out of his run. But we got your best of best going from everything. We got Bronco Busters, we got fucking, The Rock with the people's elbow, doing everything, the corporate elbow. So sorry, we're not quite there yet, but yeah, great stuff. We got sorry. Yeah, it was crazy. I mean, we got so much great shit, and then Vince with the ultimate surprise. It's Christmas. We got your bonus, and the bonus was that it was Kane. Damn it! So Kane comes down and just fucking tears out house. So it's Corporate Kane, the birth of Corporate Kane, which I remember so fondly. It was a short run, but it's a great run. But yeah, Kane comes out there, mucks everything up. It was very, very chaotic ending, but great little ending to Raw, man. Super, super fun.
Absolutely, and we see a lot of good stuff in this match. You mentioned the Kane surprise swerve at the end, which they love to do. I love the spot with the hot tag to Triple H. The Rock was begging off of Triple H, which was interesting as well as a heel, and we never really see that from The Rock, but it was really interesting to see Triple H getting a huge pop from the crowd. Rock and Triple H were the highlight to me as far as working together. They have such great chemistry. Test, as far as his first match goes, man, I think he was pretty impressive. As you mentioned before, you could tell that the training sessions with Dory Funk and the camps that we're doing was kind of benefiting. We've watched Val Venus turn into a star, and Edge and Christian, all those guys were ready for the main roster, and Test was no different. Of course, he had things to work on, but as far as the work rate goes and the exposure of guys that need to be at a certain level, Test was just as much at the level as any of these guys at this point. So I was very impressed with him. I walked away saying he, again, could be a future main eventer, and he never really quite got there. I think the heights he reached was IC champion, and he lasted for a bit after that. And then, his unfortunate, untimely passing years later. But this was very impressive. I walked away pretty impressed with him. As far as the Kane turn, as you mentioned, it probably meant a lot back then, because of the fact that it was shocking that Kane would do such a thing, but we come to know Kane, similar to Big Show, would go back and forth. He'd team with X-Pac, he'd turn on X-Pac, he would be sided with DX, he'd be with the corporation, and they're all over the place. So we get Corporate Kane here, as you mentioned, short-lived. WrestleMania 15, that all will change. Really interesting end to Raw. A lot of star power, but the corporation continues to get strong. They might have lost the Hardcore Championship, but now they gained the Monster in Kane, which makes them unstoppable going into the Royal Rumble.
Yeah, 100%, man.
So we get into our final Raw of 1998, Albany, New York, the Pepsi Arena, December 28th, 1998. All of our champions are the same. Aside from Road Dogg, he just won the Hardcore Championship in that awesome match we talked about before. They show highlights of Shane being in control last week, and we see a highlight from last night on Heat. Before this Raw, that everybody's told that Vince McMahon has saved Kane from an awful mental institution and must do everything Vince tells him to do because he's my freak. And these are Vince's words, not mine. So yeah, that's the Christmas bonus. As you mentioned before, that's the return of Kane. And that's the angle that they're running here. That's why Kane, even though he's being abused by everybody and feels like he's been turned on and everything that went on, I guess I give him credit for at least giving us reasoning here as far as why it happened, and didn't just pretend that he just made the decision on his own and made sense.
Yeah, no, but it's still goofy.
It is, for sure.
Yeah.
But they wanted the corporation to be strong. They added an enforcer, but now they have two, Test and Kane. So anyway, we get into the start of Raw. Michael Cole and Jerry Lawler lead us in. Backstage, the corporation pulls up to the building. Vince is waiting for the commissioner, Shawn Michaels, to appear, and he wants to publicly fire him as the WWF commissioner. And Vince will stop at nothing to get his revenge on everyone responsible for allowing Shane to get his ass kicked by Mankind last night. He says, in the meantime, let's go find Mankind. They follow everybody to the boiler room, and Mankind's in there. He attacks the corporation when they walk out through a dark part of the boiler room, but the numbers of the corporation is just way too much for Mick Foley. He's being held down on his knees. Vince tells him he's going to give Mankind a shot at the WWF Hardcore Championship. This is Happy New Year, Mick. And once they let him go and the corporation walks out of the boiler room, Road Dogg's music hits, and Vince wants to know why. Shane then explains that Shawn Michaels scheduled Road Dogg to wrestle Val Venus for the championship, and Vince says, I have other plans. That's not happening. But with that being said, we do wind up getting that opening match for the Hardcore Championship. Road Dogg and Val Venus, if you want to lead us through here and talk us about a Hardcore Championship match ending in a disqualification, Mike Belcaster?
Fucking wild. And this is not anywhere near as fantastic as the last night's Big Boss Man Road Dogg, or last week's Road Dogg Big Boss Man match. But really quick. Tess jumped over the ropes at some point. He ends up hitting Val Venus. The ref calls for a DQ, which, I mean, just blasphemy in a hardcore match, especially for the title, damn it. But I mean, there's a swerve. They're trying to get they want McFoley and Road Dogg to go at it later. So I mean, we got a bunch of shit going in afterwards. We got it's Shawn Michaels that I've loved throughout the whole Raw, not just this match, but I mean, the King. Oh, Shawn Michaels is getting fired later, man. It's going to be great. Like, emphasizing on it. But listen, if this was a weird angle, I don't approve of the DQ during the hardcore match, especially after such a hot match last week. And it was the shits, man.
So after the DQ, I mean, the DQ came from Tess jumping off the top rope, giving Val a bulldog. Earl Hebner doesn't know where he is because he's just like, I call for a DQ. But the story is really after the match with the Corporation attacking Val Venus on the floor. DX comes out and they try to stand beside Road Dogg. Vince, though, is on the ramp, has the microphone in hand. He tells Road Dogg the match is officially over, but he'll be able to defend his championship again later tonight against Mankind. And for giving X-Pac a Bronco Buster to Shane last week, Vince is just getting started with DX in general. Vince thinks there must be a little DX left in Shawn Michaels, too, for not coming to Shane's aid last week and apparently holding the Corporation back from helping poor Shane. And Shane, he's standing up for himself, too, which is interesting because you could think that he would stand beside his dad saying, yeah, they all got me. But it is a very unique way they're going about this where they want to make Shane look tough. But Vince says, if I have to drag Shawn Michaels down the ramp myself, I will be publicly firing your ass tonight. And he said, I would like to do that to every single person in the audience. So they blended the opening segment with this match as well.
Yeah.
And again, aside from a DQ finish in a hardcore match, I thought it was well done because it tied things together. Yeah.
The match itself was absolutely terrible, but it was the aftermath that paid off. And like you said, it really tied in with the beginning. It was good storytelling as we see a lot here in 1998. Not a lot of good wrestling. So it falls right in line with everything we've watched this year.
So we have Al Snow backstage and he is still wearing all the bloody clothes and he still has blood all over him. So use your imagination. I'm sure they re-put it on him, but still to imagine he was in that blood all week was a nice visual and fits Al Snow's character as he's slowly losing his mind, which gets darker and darker for a short period of time here.
Yeah, and if I'm not wrong, I think he does wear the blood-stained clothes for a few Raws. It's not just the last weeks in this one. So that's awesome visual. I love it. Like Al Snow's got that crazy man look to him. Like I'm all fucking here for it.
So Vince McMahon is in the back. He's talking to Kane, and Patterson and Briscoe are there as well. They're making faces behind Kane's back, and Vince catches Patterson and Briscoe and doing it, which they both look at each other and they just accept that this is going to be the case now. Kane's a part of the Corporation. Vince McMahon promises that Kane will make sure every member of DX falls one by one. And Kane pauses and nods. He's in full agreement with Vince, and he has the Monster Kane at his beckoning call, and that makes the Corporation even more dangerous. They have everyone now. Ken Shamrock, Big Boss Man, The Rock, everybody's in tow here. And not to mention two of the biggest guys on the whole roster, Test and Kane. Who's going to stop the Corporation? We need Stone Cold back badly.
Damn, we do.
Our next match here is Al Snow, as we mentioned before, in the back, wearing the bloody clothes from the bloodbath just a week prior, taking on Edge. So they show us the bloodbath to make sure. And now Head has his head shaved too. So Head has been altered. Snow's very mad at Edge, clearly. And this match is already more hardcore than the last match. Snow runs Edge into the ring post. He's choking him. Edge hits a drop kick, and Snow starts yelling at him. Edge punches back. Snow runs him down with a clothesline. We get an awesome moonsault by Al Snow. Underrated moonsault, by the way. He grabs a chair, goes to the top, And then Edge puts him on his shoulders for a face first electric chair drop onto the chair, which love the electric chair drop. I love that Edge would be doing that during this time period. Doesn't break it out enough. But we get a DQ finish because he grabs head, he being Al Snow, hitting Edge in the head with head over and over again until the ref calls for the bell. 2 minutes and 49 seconds. Here come Christian and Gangrel for the save. Now the Job Squad come out to help Al Snow, and Snow nails Dwayne Gill with head. And then we get refs and agents trying to separate Job Squad and the Brood. And this was pretty intense for a Job Squad segment here. And the Brood, it had a lot of energy here, and all thanks to Al Snow and bringing a lot of really what we saw from ECW.
Yeah.
Very meaningful expression that is in this ring that you don't really see a lot during this Attitude Era outside of the main event segments. But there was a lot of energy here.
Yeah, I really, really, really love deranged, fucking batshit crazy Al Snow, like head shaved, still rocking the blood on the clothes, even fighting with the rest of the Job Squad. Like, good shit. And Al Snow is another underrated character. I know he kind of falls in the line of that jobber area. Never really did too much, but I loved his character work, and I forgot all about it. Seeing these last couple weeks of him, so damn good, man.
So we have the locker room. We have Dennis Knight, formerly of Southern Justice. We just saw him not too long ago. He's talking with X-Pac. So they're doing kind of this, not officially GTV, but they're doing kind of the voyeur thing where they're taping him, but just so you can't hear what's going on. But what we do here is a certain he told him to be here. And Cole and Lawler make sure they mention on commentary they have no idea who he is. So they're kind of planting seeds about what Dennis Knight would be involved in. And we'll figure that out soon. He'll be a part of the Ministry of Darkness very, very soon. But we have to wait for that, and I don't think we're going to see it the full extent of the Ministry of Darkness until that starts to get going in 1999. Yeah. But we have the Women's Championship match on the line here, and unfortunately never really gets started. Sable versus Spider Lady. So besides the Capital Carnage UK pay-per-view match, this is the first match that Sable's had since winning the women's title back at Survivor Series. Obviously, she's otherwise occupied with Playboy and other stuff going on with the ringside stuff. But before the match, a fan gets in the ring. She grabs Sable and gives her a yellow rose. Jimmy Corderas or Sable don't seem concerned. And the fan, whom we know as Tori, who will become this obsessed fan, and she'll be an active part of the roster pretty soon. This is always a dangerous game they play with this fan stuff because it gives people the wrong impression of what they can and can't do. They've done it a few times. Like Santino Marella was a fan that got in the ring. And if someone's not of the right mindset, they believe that this could be something they could do. But that's more of a conversation because a masked woman named Spider Lady shows up, attacks Sable to start a match. But
what a gimmick.
The match never really gets going. And very interesting gimmick. And this is they're referencing, and we hear on commentary, they're saying that this was Moolah's old gimmick.
Yeah,
and
which I popped for. I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah. And Jerry Lawler is making jokes saying it is Moolah doing this, and she beats the shit out of Sable.
Yeah,
and we get the Oddities making the save, and Golga gets a hold of Spider Lady, unmasks herself, and it winds up being Luna. So Luna's there, and the Oddities are confused. They manage to corner Luna to keep her away from Sable, and Luna walks off, and she does a lot of the same thing Al Snow was doing just segment 4, screaming, "It's about me. It's about what I want, what I deserve." And the Oddities are checking on Sable because their friends are hurt too. We don't get a match, but this was pretty tense. Match.
You glitched a little bit, but we're good.
What did I last say?
Something about the Oddities, we're all being friends. This thing.
Oh yeah, so the Oddities just checked on him. So it was pretty much the most intense women's stuff that we've seen in quite some time.
Yeah. So good stuff. Not bad.
So we go into the next match here for the European Championship. X-Pac taking on the Big Boss Man. Woo. Lead us through the match, Mike Belcaster. Another championship match, but also another goddamn disqualification.
Yeah, no, and I'm so mad about the DQs on here because this would have had legs to be a pay-per-view great match, man. But it's not. There's some little bit back and forth. Obviously, we're getting fuckery again with test. I mean, it sucks. Like, it was cool, but then we had Val Venus come out there, and it was bound to be a DQ, right? Because that's, Jesus Christ, we can't get one good match. But yeah, 5 minutes, which I was surprised it went that long. But yeah, listen, I wish there was more time here for this, because I thought it would have been good. But it's just the storytelling match. You know how those go, and it didn't tell too much, but it was all right.
Absolutely agree. And I think there was some legs with this story that could have been told here. Bossman and X-Pac definitely is a cool matchup that probably, if you look back at their careers as far as their longevity, they've crossed paths in different spots, WCW and WWF, and all across different platforms. So I like to see them linking up here for a championship, but 5 minutes, I don't give it the time because, like you said, it's story progression. But
yeah,
we move into this awesome training footage of Shane and Vince McMahon. And this is awesome. They're going to show this on the build up to the Rumble, where it's Rocky inspired, Hulk Hogan inspired. I think they did this with Bret Hart in the lead up to the Iron Man match. Same thing with Shawn Michaels, the training footage. And we see some Hulk Hogan poses on Vince's side. This is just epic, dude. Like, this was a lot of fun to see.
I wonder if Vince still has that neon gym. Like, I hope it's like still updated workout machines, but I hope he still got that WWF neon going around it was awesome, breaking the eggs, doing everything you could possibly think you would have in a training montage. And Vince's gym looks fucking sweet, so awesome.
So we lead into our next match here. It's a tag match, Owen Hart and Jeff Jarrett, with Deborah in their corner taking on Steve Blackman and Goldust. And we just come to accept the Blue Blazer is sometimes going to be Owen Hart. It's sometimes going to be Jeff Jarrett. And that's what the announcers are selling to us at this point. And it's no longer a mystery who they are. They're both of them. And together they make up a tandem that becomes tag champs. They walk into WrestleMania 15 as tag champs, and their relationship really grows from now until 1999. And Jeff Jarrett and Owen Hart, they kind of form a really good dynamic in a time where tag wrestling kind of takes a back seat. They have a really good, memorable run. And this match here, they do get the loss here, 3 minutes and 42 seconds. Blackman and Goldust wind up getting the win. The finish winds up seeing Dan Severn getting involved, wearing a neck brace, walking down the ringside. Owen Hart lets go of the sharpshooter that he feels like he had the win match, the match won, and he wants to apologize to Dan Severn. So Severn walks up, and they're all trying to reason with him, and this is blurring the line too, because it's a work shoot type of thing where they if you guys remember, they did the same exact spot where Austin broke his neck. They did it to Severn and kind of sent Owen spiraling into a depression, not wanting to work anymore. Jarrett and Deborah go over to talk to Severn while Owen gets back in the ring. He gets rolled up by Steve Blackman quickly for the 3 count. Severn leaves. Jarrett, Owen, and Deborah leave, and Goldust and Blackman shake hands and move on throughout the night. So I wouldn't say this closed the book on anything, but at least we got a finish here, and we have Dan Severn back on our TVs, whatever that means to somebody.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I couldn't agree more with everything. At least we got a roll-up win too. It wasn't like a bullshit win.
When we come back, we see the Acolytes beating up Dennis Knight, and they throw him in the trunk of their car, and they take us back to what happened during the commercial break. They jump him, they threw him against a dumpster, they load him in the trunk and drove away. We do eventually know he gets like sacrificed and joins the ministry and becomes Midian, but this is what they're doing. They're abducting people. They're sacrificing them on and crucifying them on Undertaker symbols. And then eventually they do the same thing with Stephanie McMahon. Where they like go into the house, do like a home invasion on it's pretty gnarly stuff. That you run the risk, and how far is too far. And this is one of those things that I don't know if it fits in a wrestling show. That's to be discussed for another time, but they are pushing the limit with this ministry stuff.
Yeah, no, it's insane, but good stuff. Like, I'm happy to see the Acolytes in prominent roles, and I always love seeing people get their shit kicked out of them and then throw it in the trunk. You gotta love it.
So we're about to get Midian. We won't really talk a lot about Midian going forward, but your thoughts on Midian? I mean, European champion. We eventually get the naked Midian. Any memorable things with Midian on your end? Because they'll also 99 Royal Rumble. They'll take Mabel and they're going to sacrifice him and make him Viscera. So the ministry's growing.
Yeah. Weird.
What are your thoughts on Midian?
Naked Midian. That's all I remember. That's all I care about. I remember playing like he was my jobber guy in like No Mercy. Like that's about as far as he went. So I mean, shit happens. Or maybe it was WrestleMania 2000. Whatever. It was one of the games. But
I remember. He was was wearing the eye shirt. He carried the eye in a jar kind of thing. And Yeah, and then lucky for everybody, we're not really going to be covering 1999 because we'll get the corporate ministry. So you think the corporation's big, you think the ministry's big. Imagine what happens when you combine those two motherfuckers together.
Yeah. Bunch of bullshit. That's what.
So speaking of people that are involved in the corporate ministry, we have Triple H with Billy Gunn, China, Road Dogg, and X-Pac taking on Ken Shamrock with Test and Big Boss Man. This is an Intercontinental Championship match. So we cannot forget Triple H had to forfeit the IC title belt with the injury he suffered at SummerSlam, and Ken Shamrock, who took the title in a one-night tournament, which was all these shows ago. And we were reminded by Michael Cole that Shamrock lost to Billy Gunn last week, even though it was a non-title match. And we have Shamrock getting a lot of heat again. A lot of Shamrock sucks chants, people booing him, people very behind Triple H. Pretty good match here, but unfortunately for everybody involved, we get shenanigans at the 6:36 mark. Triple H coming back with a high knee. He delivers the face buster. Boss Man's out on the ringside, so is Test. And as we've mentioned before, we get Triple H stuck in the ankle lock. Fans are giving a lot of shit to Shamrock. Gets very dramatic. He reaches for the rope. Shamrock won't release it by the count of 5, and the ref throws it away. Tim White gets shoved away, which triggers a DQ. Corporation brawl with DX. Patterson and Briscoe send Kane to the ring, and DX basically clears out everybody on their own. So craziness at the end. They give us championship matches on TV, which probably drives ratings, but at the same time, it's like, what these DQ finishes have to stop. Why couldn't we just have Shamrock retain the championship?
Yeah, why couldn't Triple H tap? Or maybe the ref's distracted and he gets hit in the face with something and then turns around and Shamrock pins him so he doesn't look like he's weak. It was wild, but it is what it is.
All I'm asking for is just finishes. Can we stop spamming DQs? And it's really evident. And a lot of people too, when you think back on WCW, everyone rips on WCW's finishes. Everyone's like, oh, they used to do DQ finishes and they never committed to a finish. WWF is just as bad, if not worse, during this era. Worse. I mean, there's Raws. I mean, we've covered Raw. Like, we are in an avalanche of disqualification where if we were drinking for this shit, you and I would just be out cold here with this perpetually taped where it's 10 hours on loop here, man. It's insane how many disqualifications we've endured.
Yeah, no, it is absurd. But again, great storytelling though. So it really, it matters, but it doesn't matter, right?
So we have a Kevin Kelly interview with Billy Gunn. Moral of the story here: he says that Ken Shamrock's walking around with my IC title belt. I beat him clean, but they pulled the rug out from under me. Shout out to Kevin Kelly. Great job on Collision thus far. Love to see him on our TVs. Yeah. He's going to do a great job during the G1. We have Mark Henry and D'Lo Brown. They're coming down to the ring. Mark's apologizing to China for what happened last week. He says it's wrong. I just want you back in my life. He gets on his knees begging for her to come back. And next thing you know, we get PMS heading down to the ring. We now know them as PMS. It's Terry and Jacqueline. So go back and forth. This is a segment too that just doesn't really matter. D'Lo is involved in the middle of this. Mark is happy that all these women are fighting over him. China tells PMS that next time I'm not going to be ladylike, and tells Mark he'll see her later. So it seems like China and Mark are on good terms. Thoughts on this segment? Any thoughts?
Listen, this is the birth of the romance between him and China. I mean, this is she does call Mark Henry her man here. And Mark Henry gets all giddy like a school kid. Like, he's like, oh my God. Like, I love the back and forth here, but China just showing up saying, don't talk to my man like that. I'll fuck you up. You back off my Kool-Aid, bitches. Like,
so you texted me earlier today when we were about to record saying that the 1998 year in review video they showed was the highlight. And I agree, man. They did a great job encapsulating what the year was about with this awesome year in review video. And it really put in perspective how many moments there were. And I wish you could play it here on this thing without getting copyrighted, but this was awesome. I think it was, and they had a lot to fit in. It just makes you appreciate what has happened in the last 12 months.
Yeah, and it's not something we would normally see. Like, WWF wouldn't throw that out in like 99. We didn't see the best of the year in review at the last, you know what I mean? Like, this was a really special video package, and it wasn't on par with WWE's normal video packages, but it was still so sentimental because of every big thing that happened there. I mean, from the bedpan to Vince McMahon's head to Austin Bang 316. Like, there were so many good pieces of footage in there, and it just shows you how memorable this year was. Like I was all up in my feels when I was watching. I was like, shit, man. I was like, this was one of the best years of pro wrestling, I think, bar none. And yeah, man, it was fucking well done.
I agree with you. I thought it was really well done, and they've done a great job from early onset of even before the Attitude Era, and they've gotten even better at making these video packages and making things feel important. And even that continues today. It's important to encapsulate storylines to get people caught up quick, and bookending feuds and having them in front of matches. I think back the most famous one, WrestleMania 17, the My Way package with Rock and Austin. They do such a good job of making it feel important. So if you never watch wrestling and then you tune in for the pay-per-view, boom, you're caught up. And the same thing happened here. If you just happen to tune in, November, and then you've been watching Raw since then, I felt like this did a good job catching you up and making you feel like I have to watch Raw every week because this is all the shit that was going down.
Yeah, and I mean, literally all of it was on Raw except for maybe a few moments that were pay-per-view highlights, like King of the Ring. It's fucking crazy.
So we lead into our next match here. Billy Gunn taking on Kane. And Kane has Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson in his corner. And this was supposed to be Billy Gunn versus Godfather. Shane comes out, changes Billy's opponent to Kane. We get Kane in total control. But that's not good enough for Patterson and Briscoe. They want him to absolutely obliterate Billy Gunn. So we get a lot more shenanigans with the corporation. Kane heads back in the ring. Shamrock grabs the ankle lock on Billy Gunn. Patterson's distracting the ref, which is Mike Chioda, and Briscoe tries to calm Shamrock down. Kane hits a choke slam, but Patterson and Briscoe want more. They're like, dude, we want more. This is what we hired you for. He delivers another one.
Yeah.
Patterson says, we want more. Then a third choke slam. Here comes X-Pac. He delivers a missile dropkick to Kane that sends him out of the ring. Chioda then, of course, DQs Gunn to end the match. 3 minutes and 58 seconds. Gunn is rescued by DX. So we went from Billy Gunn almost winning the IC title to getting pretty much just destroyed by Kane in the same 2-week span. But man, here we are, another DQ. No reason for it. Just no reason for it.
No, not at all. It was totally unnecessary, but whatever.
So before our main event here, The Rock comes out to join commentary, and he is going to be calling Road Dogg and Mankind all sorts of names, most notably pieces of trash the whole time. And Shawn Michaels arrives to the building and seems to feel bad about being an hour and 45 minutes late to the show. But we have our main event here for the Hardcore Championship. And man, the Hardcore Championship main eventing a Raw, a lot of fun here. Mankind, Road Dogg, set the stage for us. Mike Belcaster, this is our main event of the last Raw of this year. And I thought it did a good enough job for a nice little finale for us.
No, and listen, in the sea of bullshit that we've had going back and forth of DQ after fucking weird storytelling match, like whatever, this could have main evented WrestleMania. This was so good. And again, it was Mick Foley doing his thing, going out there being Mr. Hardcore, and Road Dogg showing up and fucking going toe to toe with them. It was so damn good, man. Great back and forth, a lot of good shit. I mean, we got everything that you could possibly want out of these two. I mean, Mankind almost killed Road Dogg with the TV monitor. I mean, we had some great stuff, but the rock bottom hits. Road Dogg pins Mankind. We did not get Mick Foley winning the Hardcore title again. We got Road Dogg retaining, but I'm okay with it because this was a great fucking match, and we deserved a good match.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good spots in this match. I think the toolbox thing that falls on Mankind's face was insane. Nails and screws popping everywhere. Of course, we get the cookie sheet, as we mentioned before. Road Dogg nails Mankind, and he pulls no punches here, hits him right in the head with it. We get Mankind nailing with a chair across the back. We get Road Dogg hitting a Russian leg sweep, which I thought was a nice shout out to Brad Armstrong, his brother, which was cool. But yeah, there's a lot of good spots in this match, and the Hardcore Championship is something, when done right, like not DQing people, it's done in a great way. And I think it does a good job of main eventing the show. It doesn't feel like Road Dogg shouldn't be main eventing. And of course, you're getting the Mankind and Rock story progress because they have a feud going into the Rumble. But man, this is, quickly off to the races, and the fans are very much involved. Like the brawling in different areas of the arena, as we see even today with the anarchy in the arena, where people are just involved and they're hoping they come in their section, and it's just chaos all over. And that's the same spirit here, where the wrestling kind of takes a back seat, and it's just really just shock value and just using anything in your vicinity to put damage on your opponent. And I think they do a good job with it. And Road Dogg retaining was interesting. Road Dogg has a decent run with this Hardcore Championship. And I think when people think of the Hardcore Championship, they think of the 24/7 rule. But I think you need to look at the early reigns, like the Mankind stuff, the Big Bossman stuff, and now the Road Dogg's reign. The title was a little bit more prestigious, which is interesting to say at this point, before they were having anybody win the championship, Molly Holly pinning Hurricane and all the stuff they were doing in that time. But this era of the Hardcore Championship was treated with pretty good prestige. And I know it was awarded to Mankind as a joke at some point in November of 1998, but there's a big piece of WWF's lineage, which you mentioned ECW. This is where ECW continued to live on through the spirit here. And a lot of the guys that you even mentioned, RVD, when he comes over, he has some good matches over the Hardcore Championship. Hold that championship, brings a lot of prestige through it throughout the Invasion angle. So I'm very biased towards the Hardcore Championship. I think it holds a special place in the heart of wrestling in general. And I think that style of wrestling does have a place on the card because wrestling's a buffet. And I very much enjoyed this part of the plate tonight because it was much needed after all the bullshit with the DQs and all the weird storytelling. I thought this was awesome and very Attitude Era to end a Raw, the last Raw of the year, with a match like this. So, of course, as you mentioned, Rock gets involved. Of course, you know that's going to happen. He rock bottoms Mankind right on the floor, and the back of Foley's head hits that floor, man. And it's just brutal to see. Brutal to see. Road Dogg's in bad shape, but he's still the champion. And Road Dogg sees the finish played on the Titantron. He's pissed that it happened. But it was a good brawl, and it was a finish. But that's not our main event altogether because we get Vince McMahon coming out to the ring. And he tells Shawn Michaels to come out to the ring himself. If you got the guts, of course, Shawn Michaels' music plays, and here he comes. Vince cuts the entrance short, and he says, let's get down to business. Vince says, you came in 10 years ago, spending millions of marketing for you, and then you became the WWE champion, and that was how the beginning of Shawn's downfall. So he's saying he took for granted what he gave him, and Vince then says, he was showing an excerpt from Michael's interview from an episode of Raw prior to WrestleMania 14, clearly edited down, but he basically is ripping on Vince. Vince is just saying, like, you know what? I treated you like my own son, and this is how you say about me. And he's saying that he held the corporation back. And then Vince says, you are one of the greatest WWE superstars of all time, but dude, you suck as the commissioner. And Vince doesn't lay down for anybody. And from there, as far as being WWE commissioner is concerned, you're fired. So he keeps his word. He fires Shawn. Shawn looks at him. He looks pretty downtrodden and sad. And he reaches back and, man, he fucking lays in that sweet chin right under Vince's chin. And, he told him to lay it in. Awesome end to the Raw. Awesome end to the year. We get sweet chin music right to Vince's chin. We get Shawn Michaels music playing. The shirt comes off. The tie comes off. And then Vince pretty much gets, dry humped by Shawn Michaels on the floor. And the corporation runs short on the ring. And that's 1998. In a nutshell right there. And I wouldn't have it end any other way. The only other thing we could have would be Stone Cold coming in and stunning somebody. But this is how we started the year. Shawn Michaels as the champion. Here we are with him getting a kick in on the boss. And that's how the year ends. It's pretty apropos.
Yeah, it's very poetic, very well done. I loved it. And we can't have Austin out there. We got to protect our money, man, because we need him for the Rumble. We need him for WrestleMania, man. But I love this. I love the ending segment. I thought it was really well done. It's good to see HBK kind of get his spark back a little bit after being fired. And Vince took a hell of a super kick. It was beautiful. So what a way to close out the show. What a way to close out 1998. Holy shit. We did it. We went through another year, man. It's been insane.
It is absolutely insane. And this is the third time we've gone through a full year. If you guys missed the things we've done WCW 96, ECW 1995, now WWF 1998. And then we're going to be looking forward to Smoky Mountain Wrestling 1994. But before we do that, let's get to the chaser and pick our favorite part of these two episodes of Raw in the final two ones of 1998.
The chaser.
Woo!
Mike Belcaster, the chaser, and you know the deal. Every week we pick our favorite moment from the two episodes of Raw. And I ask you, what was your favorite part? I mean, there's a couple of good things to pick from here. We know it's not a DQ, but what'd you walk away most memorable from these two episodes, the 21st and the 28th episodes of Raw?
Yeah, it wasn't a DQ. It wasn't Mark Henry with a ball gag in his mouth and whipped cream on his chest. And it definitely wasn't Spider Lady. Do I got that right? Lady Spider. But I'm throwing all my stuff down, and it's not just one. I'm giving each Raw their own thing. Both hardcore matches featuring Road Dogg and Mankind. I mean, he was in the Big Boss Man one too. We had a plethora of love and a well-needed break from madness of storytelling and DQs going on. And both matches really held up so well and popped the shit out of me the whole time. I was loving it. And that's the kind of chaos I remember from the hardcore title. And I love so much. Screw the 24/7 rule. Screw Pepe getting made into wings eventually. Give me absolute love of Mankind getting involved. Road Dogg and just Road Dogg, great hardcore champion. Thanks for making our last 2 episodes of Raw watchable. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I mean, I want to pick something different, and I guess I could say Shawn Michaels turning on Vince, but I have to say those 2 hardcore matches, I walked away saying that these were the 2 best things on the show. Match quality and just how eventful it was, and seeing Road Dogg in that spot shows how far things have come since the beginning of 1998. So I have to say, shout out to the hardcore championship matches between the Boss Man and Road Dogg, and then Foley and Road Dogg. A lot of good shit here. Love it. I thought it was well done, and in the sea of bad stuff we've gone through with the DQs and stuff, there's a lot of great moments, and I think that's what we pulled from 1998. It's about moments, and the hardcore championship is something that's not talked about as fondly as it should be, because there are a lot of great moments that came from that championship and that lineage.
Yeah. No, I feel like it got lost in the 24/7 shuffle. And even when they recreated the 24/7 title, I think that it took away from the hardcore title's lineage and importance. So yeah, fuck yeah. Go. I'm here for it. It was good time, man.
So with that being said, the lights are coming on the bar. It's time to close the tab here for the final wrap up of our final episode 22 of season 3 of Shot Nostalgia. But don't fret, we have the preview of next week's episode, which would be the start of a new season. Let's close the tab.
Closing the tab.
All right, as we get ready for next week of episode 1, season 4, airing on July 7th, 2023. Man, there's going to be so much to talk about. We're talking about Smoky Mountain Wrestling, January and February. That means, 2 months. We're covering the newsletter. We're covering all the TVs. We're talking about Sunday Bloody Sunday, which is their equivalent to a pay-per-view. And Colton will be joining us. There'll be 3 talking heads talking about it. But before we say goodbye and close the tab, Mike Belcaster, you do such a great job of poetically putting things together. Give me your final eulogizing as we say goodbye to 1998 WWF.
I will say the importance of the moments that we witnessed here in 1998, going from WrestleMania 14, the Austin era beginning, Mike Tyson being involved in it, going through all the way to Triple H and the Rock at SummerSlam. My goodness, what a match with the people's champ, the corporate champ was involved in, going all the way through Foley getting thrown off the Hell in the Cell twice, for God's sakes, and Terry Funk getting chokeslammed out of his shoes, to the introduction of thumbtacks in the WWF landscape, and so much more. I think we walked into this knowing that there was some importance to it, but I think we realized that 1998 has become one of the most influential and most important years in the whole landscape of pro wrestling. And by God, man, I cannot give enough praise to the highs and lows of laughing and drama and just the smiles that were put on my face by Mick Foley and Austin and Vince and Triple H, DX. I mean, you can't say one name without leaving off another. I mean, the whole damn roster, honestly, besides a few, wink, wink, nod, nod, DOA, those pieces of shit. But I thank every single one of them for making me a wrestling fan, because without this year, it would be there, but nowhere near as strong and as impactful as it's been. And yeah, man, hook, line, and sinker, this year made me a pro wrestling fan for life.
Yeah, and I think each of these seasons we've done Rashad Nostalgia live in their own box. So like if anyone asks me what my favorite season is, it's hard to even, it's apples and oranges. I think they have their own place in my heart as far as going through this journey with you. But I think you're right, man. It's about the moments here. And we've seen a lot of this old school wrestling. And of course, we've reached 25 years. This is a big deal for 1998, where we're seeing Taker and Foley posting a video of them reliving the King of the Ring moment, or him being tossed off the Hell in a Cell and watching it together. And, you know, a lot of times wrestling during the time you were a child gets looked upon with a rose-colored glasses, or it looks a little bit different. And a lot of the in-ring stuff, yeah, I think you can make the argument that in-ring stuff left a lot to be desired. But as far as the moments go, as you mentioned before, the biggest moments that we've talked about that centered around DX and Stone Cold and Vince McMahon and Foley and Taker and Kane and Triple H, everyone involved there, in a lot of ways, I think those moments are understated, because the moments are left with, you could really see the significance. And the best part is, as we've discussed week after week, these moments are hard to be replicated because they were done organically. They were following the momentum and just doing things and living week by week. And of course they had big plans, but they were following the audience and followed what they wanted to see. And they were testing limits. And this was the Wild West as far as what wrestling was. And they didn't have to abide by the same guidelines that they do now. And of course, the world was a different place 25 years ago as well. So that plays a part as well. There's a lot to be said about this era of WWF, where you ask anyone of our age bracket, their most memorable moments, I almost guarantee you would take place probably in the scope of 98, 99. The difference from 97 until the end of this year. So, you know, go from December 97 until where we are now, December 98. I would make the argument there hasn't been a year that there's been more significant change and upheaval as far as the roster goes. And I don't think there's ever been a year where you've created more stars. I think they've created probably 6 to 7 main eventers, memorable characters that sit here that people look upon fondly or are still involved in the business. Think about the undercard as well. Just a fantastic year, a fantastic journey. And as you said before, could have done it better with somebody else. I mean, you and I have such a great time here recording week after week. I think we're 60 plus episodes in, and never gets old doing this. And I'm learning more as we go. I watched this growing up and I lived it, but that's, you know, you learn something every week going through the newsletter, big or small. We're picking out pieces of this and rewatching it from the lens of 30 plus years old. It's definitely something different. And I very much enjoyed this, man. It was a different season. And as you mentioned before, it got off to a rocky start because in the beginning of 98, I'm like, what have we gotten into? You know? But man, once it got started, some of these episodes were just jam-packed with moment after moment after moment where it's like, I can't believe those all happened in such proximity to each other. That was the most amazing part to me.
Yeah, no, it's astonishing, man. So much growth. I don't think there's, but as you were so well wordingly putting it, I don't think we've ever seen so much growth from any company in this time period. I mean, any company that could come to mind. I mean, it's insane that we started off where Too Cold Scorpio was still, you know, Flash Funk, you know, coming out of that. Like, we're still getting those new gen characters, but we fall into the line of where everything got more legitimized and it was way better. And I mean, from being Super Bowl ads and all, you know, fucking magazine covers, the growth of pro wrestling has never been more prominent than it was in 1998, man.
I think people take for granted now, especially those that grew up where wrestling was just an accepted form of entertainment. Nowadays, where WWE is, like we said, it's Cirque du Soleil, it's Disney on Ice, and you go there and you bring your kids. But for our generation, wrestling was not accepted, and a lot of people they didn't tell people they watched it. They kind of hid that they watched it, and it wasn't just involved in mass media where you would be on People's Magazine or TV Guide or even Playboy. It just was kind of a backlot type of carnival type of thing that I think this year turned it into something different. And of course, they would probably say that they're not the same company they were here, but if not for 1998 and the growth that was here as far as being challenged by WCW and being pushed to the limit, developing new stars, the heights that Stone Cold took them, and even the heel character counterpart of Austin being Vince McMahon, looking at it from that lens, you can't get to the growth unless you're able to have 5 million people on a good night watching Raw on any Monday, man. It's just insane to think about just the growth we've seen and how transcendent wrestling became, where it wasn't just this niche interest anymore. It was just as much. And I know they were making fun of it in the newsletter, talking about influential people in the world, but as far as household names go, there was plenty here. Undertaker being on the Tattoo magazine, Mick Foley he's a guy that people became well known for, a guy
Time magazine, person of the year 1998 in a different world.
Wrestling, a guy from only years prior, we were talking about him in ECW in 1995, where he was just this cult legend as far as just wrestling goes. Wrestling fans knew him, but he's larger than life. And everybody here is, you have that lore of the Attitude Era that you can lean on. And I think over time, this ages really well. And the top of the card was pivotal in the growth of the company. And there's a reason why this still sells. There's a reason why Raw Reunion brings out DX and why Stone Cold still gets a pop. And The Rock is still very, very popular amongst wrestling fans. And even these Attitude Era type of vibes, it's something that people strive for. And you can always lean on that our age bracket. We have disposable income, quote unquote, now that we have tickets to sell and merchandise to buy and action figures to buy. The Attitude Era amongst the Ruthless Aggression Era started to get a little bit more spotlight on it, and deservedly so. It's very well done. And I think more people should go through this journey and watch these shows in succession, because I don't think you really appreciate just watching the big moments. I think you have to watch weekly TV to understand the significance of what they were doing.
Yeah, 1000%. And yeah, man, I'm looking forward for Forbidden Door 3, Choppy PP Part 2. No, there was so much good stuff happened. I feel like a little kid again. And as we're recording this, we're on the Cups of Fight Forever coming out tomorrow morning. And I'm going to be up at 8:00 in the morning with my bowl of cereal, ready to dive back into, old school wrestling fun with video games. And just it's not just about everything that we experience throughout the year, but it's also bringing you back that feeling of, being a kid again, enjoying wrestling without strings attached to it. Just be like, what the fuck was I just watching? This is crazy. Why did Val Venus get his dick chopped off? Why is Mark Henry got whipped cream on him? What is going on here? But you really it just makes you feel so nostalgic, and no pun intended on the fucking title of the show, but I'm so excited for the future of pro wrestling. I think we're in that space again where it's at this high that it probably hasn't been in the last 15 years. I mean, it really is. And we're on the cups of, we just came off of a great fucking pay-per-view that featured not just, AEW, but New Japan involved. We have Money in the Bank coming. Wrestling's alive and well. And it probably would not be where it is without 1998, man.
Absolutely. And I think you hit on something here. Just go out and enjoy the wrestling we're seeing here. And I think in this time, we weren't clouded with the IWC and opinions on Twitter and the toxicity that can be wrestling fandom. I think a lot of what made this so good is it's a time where you were just enjoying the product on your screen and immersing yourself in a form of entertainment to escape. And I think that's what this did. These characters you live vicariously through, Stone Cold and The Rock and Foley and Vince McMahon in some ways. And they were your heroes on screen every Monday night. And I think if we get back to it, even a sliver of that type of mindset while consuming wrestling, the world would be a better place as far as wrestling fans go, because that's what it's about. I mean, everyone gets so caught up in their favorite wrestler and who's a fan of the Elite or Punk or who's a Roman Reigns
WWE.
Fan.
Yeah, cause it doesn't
just
fucking
enjoy
matter
what we're watching. And I think that's the awesome part about this is hopefully 25 years from now, we're talking about 2023 in such a glowing way where you can look back and say, that was memorable. That shaped my fandom in a different way. And hopefully we have more moments like this to look forward to. And this would be, just building on what 1998 was about. And even 1996 WCW, everything we're covering here, there's a lot of significance in just passing the torch and the future generations of wrestling. As you mentioned, wrestling's thriving, wrestling's in a good place, but it's only going to continue if people continue to fall in love with it. And I'm happy to say I feel like it's going to continue to do the same thing where I'm an older man passing on my knowledge and fandom to other wrestling fans in my life that are younger, that you can look back very fondly on things that you enjoyed and also enjoyed the new stuff with them through their eyes.
we're going to be those angry old grannies sitting front row, slapping Hulk Hogan on the back, being like, "You bad man, you," but rightfully so, in the best way possible.
So as we said, next week we're going to be talking about Smoky Mountain Wrestling. We got great overlays. We got a great intro video. We have a lot of fun ahead for you guys. It's going to look a little bit different, but very similar. If you followed us for the ECW 1995 season, very similar to that. Even shorter though, covering 2 months at a time. Aside from the last 2 episodes, we're going to be covering November and December for episodes 6 and 7. But yeah, all of January, all of February, all the tapings, all the stuff in the newsletter, talking about new characters, and a lot of this stuff I've been going through and watching. We have a lot on the docket as far as fun stuff, man. The roster's pretty stacked, from Chris Jericho, the New Jack, and Mustafa, and some really good stuff. Chris Candido, some good shit in here. WWF talent sharing, and yeah, man, we'll get into it in a big way with Colton here. But before we go here, I know you guys just had Magic on Fig Night this week, but what else is going on in the tavern on your end?
Man, we're moving nights on for the All Elite wrap up. We're going to be moving on the Sundays. So right after we're shoot recording here for Shout of Nostalgia, I'll be going on live a little closer to the 10 o'clock hour and talking about all things that happened. AEW Collision, a little bit of Dynamite in there, but mostly Collision news. And we're just changing up the format a little bit, trying to freshen things up. And that's about it, man. I mean, we had a great Fig Night. We were talking about all of our favorite AEW action figures, as we always do, and our good friend Magic from Jazzbirds hopped on over and discussed about some of the cool stuff going into them and things we're all excited about for the future. But I'm most excited about, Ace. I'm so excited to get Vince Russo the fuck out of our ear, and we get to bring in Jim Cornette, because that's where the love's going to be.
You want the dirt? Guess who's got the shovel?
Shovel my ass, you little prick.
Man, I love it. And I love Fig Night. I watched the episode with Magic. It was awesome. And Magic's my boy. I loved hanging out in Chicago. We got to make that happen again. Maybe all that weekend this year. We'll see if we can make that happen. Who knows? They just announced the schedule. It's happening Labor Day weekend again. So fingers crossed, if all things work out, maybe it can happen. But on my end, wrestling tonight, Mondays at 7, Tuesdays for the audio drop, Brace for Impact on Thursdays, following Impact on Access, myself and Colton covering all things Impact Wrestling, which has been a blast.
Bravo.
Thank you guys for watching.
You've been killing it. It's fucking superior watch compared to no shooting on Ring of Honor, but superior watch because it's got legs. Ring of Honor is still crawling, 100%. Baby. Yeah.
Well, man, we have a lot of good stuff on the tavern. Make sure you guys go to theturnbuckletavern.com and make sure you get all of your needs there. Buy a shirt. Make sure you leave a review. Call the tavern, dude. Like, you know how Colton got involved with the tavern? He's now on Shot Nostalgia. He called the tavern, left a voicemail. He's defending Dom Mysterio. And look at this now. Dom Mysterio is one of the hottest heels in wrestling. You know what? At Mullet Out Mania, our partner here in crime, Shot Nostalgia, was well on it before all you guys were. So shout out to Colton. Can't wait to do all the same stuff next week with a different overlay, a different feel to it. But Mike Belcaster, lead us out as we say goodbye. This has been a blast, dude. Thank you so much for your time, dedication, everything we do for this season. I couldn't do it without you.
Absolutely, man. And I appreciate the kind words, but Jim Cornette's going to take it away. Get in that goddamn DeLorean. We're going to Wendy's and we're going straight down to Smoky Mountain Pro Wrestling. Ace, lead the way, brother. Let's get out of here.
Wrestling the way you like it, the way it's supposed to be. See you guys next week.